Hi everyone, today we're going to be doing a poem titled Eating Poetry by Mark Strand. Right, so the first thing that I like to do when I'm going to tackle a poem is firstly starting by numbering all the lines on the right hand side so that it's easy when we analyze it, we know line what says what. It's easy, it's quicker to just go and identify and go to that line rather than having to start counting all over. Right, but some of the poems that will come in your exams will obviously be indicated the number of lines, but I find this very easy when you're writing an exam and to just jump straight to it. So we are first going to look at the external structure, and when we mean external, it's the outside of the poem. So in other words, we are not reading the poem or analyzing it yet. We are simply just looking at what it looks like. So when we are looking at a poem or the structure or the external structure of a poem, we are looking at the form, the rhyme, the enjambment. Now, when we talk about the form, we're talking about how many lines, how many stanzas. Also the rhyme falls under that as well as an enjambment. So let's get down to it. So if you look here, the poem has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stanzas, and it all has 18 lines. Also, the line, each stanza has 3 lines. Each stanza has 3 lines. So what we call that is a tessets. Okay, so these are tessets. Each stanza containing 3 lines. And if you look closely, there's not a lot of rhyme scheme. There's no internal rhyme. There's hardly any external rhymes. Where we do find an external rhyme or a rhyme scheme is in line 13 and line 14, where the word understand rhymes with the word hand. Now remember, when we are looking at rhyme, we are looking at the sound. Does it sound the same? We are not looking at whether it looks the same. So rhyme is all about sound and not about sight. If you continue on to line 17 and line 18, again the word bark rhymes with the word dark. Right, and then we get on to the enjambment. There's no enjambment in stanza 1. We do find it in stanza 2 from line 5, and we know this because there's no punctuation at the end of line 5. We only find it again in line 6. So the idea here is that the speaker's thought or the speaker's idea continues or starts from line 5 and continues on or ends in line 6. That's why we call it an enjambment. And then if you look at the rest of the poem, there's no other enjambment because each line has punctuation at the end, meaning that the idea ends at that line, hence the punctuation. Right, let's get on to it. The poem, just to give you a context of it, the poem is a surreal type of poem. So it's surreal, it's like having a dream. So think of it as, when you have a dream, you dream of things that are so unreal and they don't make sense most of the times. So it's almost the same experience as you would experience in a dream, okay? And then you'll notice that the entire poem is a metaphor. So in other words, we already know when you talk about a metaphor, it's something being compared to someone else. So the entire poem is a metaphor of someone experiencing joy. It's being compared, in other words, this person eating poetry is being compared to a normal person having a dream or passion, or rather getting joy from just simply doing the thing that they're passionate about. Okay, you'll notice the setting of the poem is in the library. It is mentioned there, for example, in stanza 2, when they speak about the librarian. So we already know that we find the librarian typically in the library. So now let's look at each line. Ink runs from the corners of my mouth. So the speaker here is literally, we are giving a literal image here that the speaker is consuming or eating what? Poetry. Now, this poetry obviously is from the books that he's reading in the library. And now he's got ink. So now it's the ink of these poetry that he's been eating from these books that now runs from the corners of his mouth. There is no happiness like mine. I have been eating poetry. So the fact that now the ink runs from the corners of his mouth is it tells the reader that the speaker has consumed too much poetry or a lot of poetry. Like there's literally ink that's coming out of his mouth. There is no happiness like mine. So in other words, he's passionate about poetry, and he says that poetry is his passion and nothing makes him as happy as poetry does. And then in line 3, I have been eating poetry. There is a metaphor here, because then eating of poetry is being compared to the consumption of food, because we can only eat food, right? So poetry is being compared to food. And this comparison is significant, because when you eat food, you get satisfied and you get full, and it's almost as if you get happy. That's if you don't eat too much, but you get happy when you eat. And so here, poetry is being compared to food, and the satisfaction and the happiness that he's getting from eating this poetry is the same satisfaction that you might get, or you will get, from eating food that you like so much. The satisfaction in the stomach and being full. So that's why there is a comparison, or rather a metaphor, comparing food to poetry, or comparing poetry to food. Then we move on to line 4. The librarian does not believe what she sees. Her eyes are sad, and she walks with her hands in her dress. So basically, we get the setting here, like I've already mentioned. The setting now, we are at the library, or the speaker is at the library, and as he's consuming this poem, or this poetry rather, the librarian sees him, and she does not believe what she sees. She's shocked. She's looking at the speaker eating poetry, and she is shocked. And this also can be a symbol of people who stand by and watch other people doing things that they are passionate about, if we have to look at it figuratively. You will play soccer, and some people will not understand why you love it so much. They just stand by and watch, and they get shocked as to why you're so obsessed with this thing that you love doing so much, with the passion that you have. So the librarian here also is shocked at looking at the speaker consuming this poetry, and perhaps she's shocked because it's just too much of it, that the ink is running out of his mouth, right? And then line 5 says, her eyes are sad, and she walks with her hands. So again, her eyes are revealing true feelings. Okay, she appears jealous. The word sad could be significant to the jealousy of the fact that perhaps she herself does not have the same passion that the speaker has, just from eating this poetry. Just like other people would watch you just live up your dream and having passion, they look at you with jealousy and envy, and they don't understand. They feel sad and disappointment. They can't even hide it from their eyes. The fact that they're looking at you being so passionate about whatever it is that you're doing, and finding joy from doing the things that you're passionate in doing or about. So here the librarian is sad, and she walks with her hands in her dress. She's confused. So I'm assuming her hands are now on her hips, or even in her pockets. Like, she doesn't believe it. She's looking at the speaker eating. There's an enjambment there. As I've explained, the run-on lines. It continues. It starts from line 5 all the way to line 6, and she walks with her hands. So the fact that also she's got her hands in her dress, it makes her appear like powerless, like defeated, like sort of insecure as to, not understanding why the speaker is consuming and getting joy and being fulfilled from consuming so much poetry. In the following stanza, line 7, the poems are gone, the light is dim, the dogs are on the basement stairs and coming up. So line 7 says the poems are gone. So this could be that the speaker has eaten all the poems, that nothing is left. The poems are gone, the light is dim. So now that he has consumed all this poetry and there's nothing else to consume, something changes, right? The light is dim. So the word dim here means not shining brightly or not clearly. the word dim. So now remember, the tone in the first few stanzas before, the speaker is happy. He's happy, he's consuming. I mean, in line 2, he mentions there is no happiness like mine. And when we think of happiness, everything is shining, everything is bright, it's light, right? But now, in line 8, the light is dim. Something changes now, now that the poetry is gone and he's consumed all of it. It's like enjoying your favorite meal. When you finish it, sometimes you are still hungry and you want more. Sometimes you are full, but because you enjoy it so much, you want to eat more of it. And you get this disappointment when it's no longer there, when it has been finished. Okay, so now in line 9, we start to see the effects. In fact, from line 8 itself, we start to see the effects that poetry has on him. Poetry brings him joy and light, but now that it's gone, his light is dim. It's not shining brightly anymore. Line 9 says, the dogs are on the basement stairs and coming up. This could be introducing the dark. Remember also, I know it doesn't connect. It's weird. Why now are there dogs? Remember, this is surreal. It's like having a dream. And when you're having a dream, you dream of all these different things that don't make sense, that don't add up. But here in line 9, it says, the dogs are on the basement stairs and coming up. So the image there is so surreal, all right, that the speaker now starts to see, weird things or odd things or strange things. And maybe this is just his imagination playing with him. But then again, it's like, having a dream. So this could also be symbolic to what happens after, reading large amounts or eating a lot of poetry in this instance, okay? So then the mood now changes. It's no longer this happy mood. It's now, introducing darkness and, everything that's going to happen now, it'll be because now there is no light. There's no happiness because of now the fact that the poem has been consumed. It's finished. Or poetry, rather. Then line 10, their eyeballs roll, their blonde legs burn like brush. The poor librarian begins to stamp her feet and weep. So here, this is now describing it's the dogs, okay? Their eyeballs roll. This is now describing the dogs, how they look. And, they appear to be looking very, very scary. And now that, remember, the mood was happy, now it's changing. It's no longer happy now, it's scary now. Now it's a lot of chaos. It's not settling. Okay, their blonde legs burn like brush. So we get alliteration here. Remember what alliteration is? It's the repetition of the consonant sounds, and in this case, it's the b. All right, their blonde legs burn like brush. Okay, so here again, another imagery that is just so surreal. It's the dogs now that seem to be on fire. Okay, so the fact that they're on fire, it adds to their image of them being scary. Okay, but then also another image that we might get of the mentioning of fire because of the word burn, it could be now the symbol of a passion. The passion, remember the passion that he has from eating poetry. So it goes back to his love for poetry, his deep love for poetry, okay? So his passion consumes or burns the brush quickly. The poor librarian begins to stamp her feet and weep. So the speaker here, the word poor, it's not like, saying poor as in you don't have money, the librarian doesn't have money or whatever. But here, it's the speaker feeling some sympathy for the library because now the librarian is the one that's experiencing all of this that is happening, okay? And the feelings that she has, it's those of someone who doesn't have their own passions, and you feel sorry for them, for looking at other people sort of live up to their dreams or live their dreams and working hard to achieve their dreams or living out their passions that they have in life. So now it's just the word poor, it's the speaker showing sympathy for the what? For the librarian. Okay, there is a shift in mood here, okay? The mood changes now. The librarian now feels worse than before. Remember, he was feeling sad and, defeated. Now she feels worse. She feels like, like she's looking at this person. She doesn't understand why this person is fulfilled from just consuming poetry. So now, again, the speaker here, is experiencing this, and the librarian is watching the speaker experiencing this. When we move on to the next stanza, she does not understand. When I get on my knees and lick her hand, she screams. So now the librarian continues to be confused. She doesn't understand. She doesn't understand, why the speakers love an obsession with consuming large amounts of poetry. She doesn't understand it. She also doesn't understand what's going on, the speaker's surreal experiences, okay, because she's observing all of this. So, because now it appears as if now the speaker, when I get on my knees and lick her hand, dogs are the ones that normally lick their hands. So now the speaker is now showing the behavior of a dog. So it's almost as if the speaker now has changed into a dog, or rather showing the characteristics or behavior of a dog when the speaker gets on his knees and licks the hand of the librarian. Obviously she screams. Okay, so here the speaker reveals that he has been transformed. Now he has become an animal. Okay, so again, the effects of consuming so much poetry here are shown. Then line 15, she screams. The speaker tries to interact with the librarian by licking her hand, right? Perhaps, when dogs lick people's hands, it's showing friendliness. So now the speaker is doing the same here. But now the librarian does not receive it well because she screams. She's frightened now. Okay, and she's not necessarily frightened by the speaker himself, but she's frightened of the effects of poetry that it has had on the speaker. Okay, so now he's got these strange and weird behaviors, and the librarian is shocked. Okay, line 16, I am a new man. I snarl at her and bark. I romp with joy in the bookish dark. So here, the speaker has been changed or transformed by poetry, because now he's a what? He's a new man. He's no longer the same man that he was before he consumed or ate poetry. But now he's a new man, and now he's transformed because of the consumption of poetry. So here, the speaker still describes himself as a man, even though he's got these behaviors of a dog, like snarling and barking. It's all a shock again to the librarian. So I snarl. Snarling means aggressive growl, showing teeth, right, of a dog, and bark. Okay, so this also shows aggression as well. The speaker continues to behave like a dog and snarl and bark like a dog. This poetry has completely changed the speaker and made him comfortable in behaving like a dog. The snarling and the barking. He's been changed by poetry, the consumption of poetry. I romp with joy in the book, because to romp, it's to play and jump around like a puppy. Again, continues to compare himself to a dog. Okay, so here again, he's energetic. Romp, he's energetic like a little puppy. It's happiness again of the effects that the poetry has given to the speaker. Then bookish here gives us again the setting of a library, because we are in a library. The rhyme here, it emphasizes the joy, the bark, and the joy the speaker is feeling. the barking. You know, dogs sometimes bark when they're feeling joyful, sometimes not so much. But then now there's a contrast of the barking and the dark, okay? So it suggests, or it might suggest, again, the scary image of a dog, and of the dark, rather, sorry. The scary image of the dark, okay? I hope this has helped. Thank you so much. If there's any topics you'd like for me to touch on, please comment below and I'll get on it. Thank you. See you next time.